Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990s Represent. We're in our first cycle of 1996, and starting off with an album, we are talking about Spice by the Spice Girls, their debut album. I actually own this one here on vinyl. This is not an original pressing. This is the, I think, 2015 reissue, but a very solid pop album. I don't think it was really as appreciated in the 90s as it is kind of now. I definitely think this album, I think some people kind of slept on it a little bit, but I definitely think it is a very solid pop album. Again, I think the Spice Girls as like a group, it was kind of like they were around for a few years. And then I think people kind of realized after the fact, after they had broken up, that they were actually a pretty good act. They've kind of reunited a couple times. There's always been kind of rumors and talk about other reunions. I don't think any of those have ever actually materialized. I think 2019 was like the last one, and that was without Posh Victoria Beckham. I don't think she did that particular tour, and I think it was only like a handful of dates. I would absolutely love to see them live at some point if they actually ever do get back together. But with that, we're going to jump into our notes here about this album. I don't like using the term guilty pleasure, but the Spice Girls are always like a band that I definitely, I guess it kind of is a guilty pleasure, but I don't really think you should feel guilty about liking something. So guilty pleasure is probably not the right term, but I definitely enjoy them, even though there definitely is better music out there. The Spice Girls, like their 3 albums, are always a good time. I think they did this album, Spice World, and then Forever. That one was without Ginger Spice, and I have like one of their greatest hits collections too. But let's go to our notes here. So Spice first released September 19th, 1996. Again, this is of course, their debut studio album. Went on to be incredibly successful, kind of worldwide. I think it's like sold some 23 million copies. Went platinum and multi-platinum in several countries. So I think it was very commercially successful. However, I think at the time, like a lot of critics didn't really, I think, like it very much. It actually had a lot of mixed reviews, at least initially. I think a lot of people, like looking back on it through like a nostalgic lens, actually have kind of had like a turnaround on it, actually thinking that yes, this is actually pretty good. So again, like 23 million copies sold worldwide. It started out with Heart Management, basically putting out an ad. I'm going to pull up the quote for that ad really quick. So yeah, Heart Management put out an ad in, I think it was called The Staff. Let me see the magazine here. Looking at Shockwave, but yeah, so they put out an advertisement in the Stage magazine, and it asked the quote. They were basically looking to create like a pop music group, and the quote in the magazine article or magazine advertisement was, quote, "Are you street smart, extrovert, ambitious, and able to sing and dance?" And then they got a bunch of replies to that, or like responses, and they basically picked 5 people. Baby Spice, Emma Bunton was not originally in that group. It was, let me actually pull it up. So it was Victoria Beckham, Mel B, Mel C, Jerry Halliwell, and Michelle Stevenson, who eventually Michelle Stevenson had to leave the band, I think, due to like an illness in the family, and then she was replaced by with Emma Bunton a little bit later on. So Baby Spice wasn't initially in that group. It was kind of, I think one of the criticisms about the group initially was that I don't want to say like it was like kind of like created in a lab. It's like kind of like not the right way to describe it, but they definitely like had a formula for this group, and it felt kind of like very manufactured. So I think that is one thing that people didn't like about it, because it didn't really feel like an organic group. I think once they got to know each other, they definitely had like good chemistry between them. If you've ever seen the Spice World movie, even though that's a movie, I think that's kind of just them having a good time, and that came out a year after this. But I definitely think they kind of grew closer and then also eventually developed that chemistry, even if it wasn't there initially, because they were kind of just like chosen to kind of fill these roles. So that advertisement was out there. We said, let's see, the band was originally called Touch, and I think one of their demos, according to my research, was called Sugar and Spice, and they eventually took the Spice Girls name from that and replaced, like, Touch was the name of that group initially, and then they went with Spice. They left Heart Management, and the cool thing about this is they left that management company and they stole their demos and stole all their masters, so they were still able to use that, and they had to kind of then, I think at one point they were basically like managing themselves, and I think they eventually they kind of did a lot of the stuff on their own. So left their management company, stole their masters, and we talk about people owning their masters and all that. It's kind of cool that they actually had to basically steal them from their management company in order to kind of protect them and then basically be able to release their music. So they met with Elliot Kennedy, and I think it was kind of funny because they had set this arrangement or this meeting up prior to leaving their management company. But then they knew, the only thing they knew about this person was that they lived in Sheffield, and they basically had to go through a phone book, and they had to call every Kennedy in that phone book until they found the right one. They eventually found the right person, had their meeting, and then started getting to work on producing their album. Like I said earlier, it was kind of released to mixed reviews, but I think eventually people kind of turned around on it. I think but I don't know if these reviews are actually reflective of that. Let me actually pull some reviews up here, or just here we go. So, for example, looks like AllMusic initially gave it a 4.5 out of 5. The Encyclopedia of Popular Music gives it a 4 out of 5. Got a B+ from Entertainment Weekly, 3 out of 5 from The Guardian. The LA Times gave it a 2 out of 4. Music Week gave it a 5 out of 5. Pitchfork gave it looks like a 6.8 out of 10, while Rolling Stone gave it 1.5 stars. The Rolling Stone Album Guide, a little bit different, gives it 3 out of 5. USA Today gave it 2 out of 4. And that was about it. So definitely some good reviews, some not so great reviews. So, but I definitely feel it's gotten better. Since, I think if you were to listen to this album now, you would say that it's a very just solid pop music album. If you listen to it back in the 90s, you maybe wouldn't have liked it as much. I definitely remember there was one point where Wannabe was just everywhere. It maybe got overplayed a little bit. But I remember there was a Macromedia, I'm going to date myself with this, but a Macromedia, before even Adobe had it, I think it was called Shockwave, and I think it kind of, Flash and Shockwave were similar, but a little bit different. But there was a Shockwave game where you were basically I want to say it was Whack-A-Mole, but it was Spice Girls, so they would pop up and they would be singing Wannabe. You had to click on them to kind of the Whack-A-Mole game where you had the 9 balls that pop up, and you hit them with the thing. But Wannabe kind of became overplayed a little bit. I definitely did like that in Small Soldiers. I didn't see Small Soldiers when it came out, because that album came out movie I should say, came out a couple years later. And there's a part where they're doing psychological warfare. I think it's psychological warfare, but they play to kind of torture people. The toys in the movie are playing Wannabe by the Spice Girls. It's one of my favorite gags of the movie. But yeah, Small Soldiers is a really fun movie as well. I did an episode of 1998 Represent about that back last year. But yeah, came out to mixed reviews. We're going to go ahead and pull up our track list here. We'll go through that. So the track list here, it's a short album, but it comes in at about 40 minutes and 10 tracks. So track 1 is Wannabe. It's a classic. It's not one of my favorites because I definitely think they have done better songs on this album as well as their other 2 albums. But Wannabe is kind of the de facto main song from them. It's a song that everybody knows. So track 1 is Wannabe. Track 2 is Say You'll Be There. I think that's probably overall my favorite Spice Girls song across any album. I actually think Spice World overall is a better album. But Say You'll Be There is probably, It's very easily my favorite song from them. Track 3 is To Become One. That's also a pretty good one. Track 4 is Love Thing. I actually really like Love Thing. It's kind of like a little, I don't necessarily want to call it a deep cut, but it's not one of their more well-known songs, but I actually really like it. Track 5 is Last Time Lover. That's also pretty good. Track 6 is Mama. Track 7 is Who Do You Think You Are? That's kind of like one of their more iconic songs as well. I think I was reading a list of like their like a rankings on their songs, and I think at one point that was ranked at number 1. Like personally for me, it's say it'll be there, but Who Do You Think You Are is really good. Track 8 is Something Kind of Funny. Track 9 is Naked, and track 10 is If You Can't Dance. So we have, again, 10 tracks, comes in about a little under 40 minutes. But yeah, Say You'll Be There is just a really solid song. It's got a really cool like music video set in the desert, and it's kind of like they're parodying almost like a spy movie, even though it's like a little more sci-fi themed. But they're all wearing kind of like different, like they're doing these like different poses in the desert, and it's really a really cool music video, but also just the song is just top notch. In my opinion, their best song. Like I said, I think I like Spice World overall as an album slightly more, but Spice is still an excellent, solid album from them. There's a few other. This is kind of like the album that kind of like started like Spice Mania. Some people kind of likened it to Beatlemania slightly. Obviously, like much less impactful than Beatlemania, but they were pretty much everywhere for 1996 through 1998 until Jerry left the group, and then they did kind of one final album that I don't think did nearly as well. And then they went on to do, I think a bunch of them did some like solo albums. Of course, like none of them being nearly as successful as them as a group. And then they kind of like went their own ways, but then kind of reunited like a couple times briefly. I would really like to go to at least one time go to a Spice Girls concert. Posh seems to be the one that is most resistant to doing it. I think she's kind of over it now. I know she does like a lot of like fashion design and has like a lot of like has her own like cosmetic makeup like line and stuff like that. And I think she's more focused on that because whenever she gets interviewed for, if people are saying like, "Are you guys going to reunite?" She kind of like you can tell she kind of doesn't want to talk about it. So I guess if there's one Spice Girl that doesn't go on the tour, Posh is probably the one that you could probably cut out. I mean, even though I would love to have all 5 of them on tour, I think she's the one I would probably cut out. If I had to like say my favorite overall Spice Girl, for a while it was Posh. Not necessarily for like her like singing ability, but just like kind of like her overall like style, and it kind of like she definitely like plays into that character type, at least in like the movie and some of the music videos. But I think overall, just like if we're talking purely like singing talent, I think Sporty Spice Mel C is probably easily the top of my list for just like her like overall like vocal ability. They're all really good singers overall, but I think Mel C is just like, if the rest of the Spice Girls are here, Mel C's like here. Like she's just like kind of like completely like on her own level as far as like just her vocal ability goes. If you want to hear her sing amazingly well, it's not on this album, but Too Much on Spice World is like, I think like her best like vocals on any of the Spice Girls albums are on that song, which is on their second one, Spice World. But if I had to choose one, that would be my favorite. It probably is Sporty, just from the like vocal like aspect. But I always have a really good time listening to this album as well as Spice World and Forever. Forever is kind of not nearly as good as the other two, but this is kind of the album that started the kind of like Spice Girl mania. It's really weird that it felt like they were like on top of the world for longer, even though it was maybe only like a couple years. Because this came out in 1996. Jerry left the group in 1998, like mid-tour, and then they kind of did like a couple years later did one final album, and that was it really. And it was very kind of short lived. I remember reading, I don't remember what magazine it was. It may have been Time magazine or something, and it was something like end of the Millennium Awards or something like that. This is like back like like 25 years ago or 24 years ago at this point. And it was like the band most likely to succeed but be forgotten about like a day later, and it was that award went to the Spice Girls. And it definitely felt like they were like on top of kind of like everything for like that brief amount of time, and then kind of just like done immediately after that. Even though they've all done like their own kind of solo stuff, their like height of their popularity was definitely like, I want to say like right after Spice World came out. And then like so like maybe like mid 1998, maybe like right when they were doing their Spice World tour, and then kind of that kind of fell apart after Jerry left. But again, I always have a great time listening to these albums. That's going to do it for this episode. We'll be back again in a few days. We'll be covering probably a movie of some kind, and we'll be doing a video game after that. And then we'll be moving into, again, we're in our first cycle of 1996 right now. And then after that, we'll go into 1997 and the rest of the decade, and then cycle all the way back to 1990 and start it all over again. But that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.